Good evening, friends. Welcome to the episode 7 of Career Shifts podcast. I'm your host, Gopal, and today we have a very special guest who has made remarkable strides in the corporate world and the realm of gender diversity. But before we dive into our conversation, let me share a personal story. I often reflect on my mom, who worked for Central Railways for more than 37 years. When I was born, many people advised her to quit her job and raise a child. She had already dedicated 12 years into her service by then and wasn't ready to give up. This decision of hers to balance her career and motherhood has been guiding light for me in my professional journey. Years later, when my sister was born, some societal pressures resurfaced. Yet again, my mother chose to continue working until 2006. Her resilience turned out to be a blessing when my father's company closed down. Her steady income became our lifeline, a testament to the positive impact of her career on our family. To be honest, we've been blessed, but unfortunately, we live in a society that often fails to recognize the importance of balance of responsibilities within family. Being part of a nuclear family doesn't make things any better. Both my parents, however, worked tirelessly to support and raise us, ensuring we had the best education and opportunities. However, societal pressure on women to shoulder more caregiving responsibilities often forces them to quit their jobs, especially during the life changing events like motherhood or even caregiving responsibilities in their mid careers. Every year, 8th of March, we celebrate Women's Day. It's a day when we engage in discussions about gender diversity across corporate forums. Yet, despite these conversations, the pace of change has been disappointingly slow. I believe we need to keep these discussions alive and make them part of our everyday conversations. As leaders, we must recognize the impact of our actions and strive to create environments where everyone can thrive, making mindful shifts in how we run our businesses and organizations. My guest today is a torchbearer of such efforts. I'm thrilled to introduce the first woman guest of this season, Neeraja Ganesh, a powerhouse of knowledge and inspiration. Neeraja is a distinguished TEDx speaker and has delivered keynotes at numerous prestigious forums, including Lenin, PMI, TIE, NASCOM, CII, RISE World Summit, Women Tech Network, and VMware Nirman. Her extensive experience in leadership and behaviors has led to conduct impactful training programs, notably her signature programs, Networking for Results and How to Tell Your Story. With a successful 25-year career in information technology industry behind her, where she excelled in managing large teams, driving operational excellence, Neeraja made a bold and inspiring career shift to focus on gender diversity. She served as Director of Relationships at National Education Society of Karnataka and led Jobs for Her Foundation, creating significant initiatives to bridge the gender gap in India. Neeraja is a strong advocate for mentorship, actively mentoring on platforms like Aspire for Her, Herkey, believing in the profound impact of mentorship can have on individuals' growth. Her contributions have been widely recognized, earning her a spot at a top 10 finalist for Women Tech Network Speaker of the Year award in 2023 and being featured in book Magical 40 at 40, which celebrates women who have transformed their life journeys. It's indeed a pleasure to welcome Neeraja Ganesh to the podcast. Neeraja, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Gopal. I'm doing well, despite the fact that we had worries about the power situation in the neighborhood, which we spoke about in the morning. But things always work out. So I'm so glad to be able to be here today for this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It's always a pleasure to hear you. We have had several conversations where I've been on the other side of the table, but it's good to be on this side now. Hearing your perspectives and I think you've done some commendable work. So there are a lot of stories that we can definitely hear. Um,
Thank you.
at the end of the day, Nirja, you have been, as I said, torchbearer of some of these initiatives. Um, do you have, I mean, before we start into some of the questions that I have, do you have anything to share to the audience today?
So I definitely would like to, start with this, and we'll end with this also, that whoever is listening in or chooses to listen in later, you're spending a significant amount of time. Could be 10 minutes, could be an hour, whichever part of the conversation. Unless and until you take some action based on that, it is just, entertainment, if I will say that. So please ensure, even one thing, we'll speak about many things, but even one thing, if that resonates with you, please do take some action. That's really going to transform your life and everyone else's lives. That's what I would like to start with.
Brilliant, brilliant. I think you couldn't have said it any better, because at the end of the day, the whole purpose for me to start this podcast was, of course, also to reflect on several conversations that I've had in the last maybe few years, especially when I was running this very special program at EY, and now when I work in my current role as well, where there are a lot of freelancers and consultants that I interact with. But the journey from being an employee to becoming a consultant has always been a very tricky one for a lot of people. Um, while, of course, I spoke at length about this in one of the other podcasts where I was a guest, there is often very little spoken about how to go about it. And there is no playbook as such. I know there have been a lot of books, but there is no playbook as such that reflects on some of these learnings that you bring onto the table with your experience, probably, Nirja. So, my first question to you is, you made significant shifts from IT industry to working in the space of gender diversity today. What motivated this transition? I know I have heard a lot about this from you, but I'm sure the audience will would love to hear about this as well.
Sure. And it's a question that comes very often. So let me be very, very honest today to say that, and I always, tell the truth. Um, it was not a very intentional decision, right? So it was not some inner drive or some motivation. Really, no. It was not an intentional transition. So let me give a bit of the backstory. I was, of course, working in this organization, and a year before I actually moved out, I was asked to put out a recommendation to help women, or rather to hire women on a career break. Okay, this was 2016. And since I have never taken a career break, so, it was nonstop 24 years as of 2016, I found it a bit strange. I said, what is this big deal about hiring women on a career break and a recommendation for that? You hire men, you hire women, go hire women on a career break. But then when somebody asks you to put out a recommendation, you don't say such things. So I actually did some research and realized that there are platforms which were started for such women. So there were women on these platforms, and organizations would come and partner with these platforms to hire them. And then I also spoke to some of my friends who had taken a career break and how these platforms helped them, etc. So I did a decent job of that recommendation, put it out, and I was also driving this returnship program in my company. And hence, I also happened to attend a conference for such, women, and that is when it hit me that it is, people don't look at them very kindly. It's almost like a different species. Oh, you've taken a career break. Uh, as if you've forgotten, you've lost out on all your learnings and experiences prior to that career break. In fact, I would say that that break gives you a lot more, in terms of, because you would have taken a break either for child care, elderly care, or even if you kind of traveled, or you were a trailing spouse, as they say, because your spouse traveled somewhere for his job and you went ahead. Each of these builds you up with so many skills and competencies which are required for your day job, and people ignore that. So
True.
that was one experience that came my way, and I decided to do something about it, which meant that I became an ambassador at Jobs for Her. Ambassadors, are people who talk about this platform, who spread the word around, and said, I'll do that. If that
Mm.
helps, let me do that. And then I went on to become a mentor on this platform. And before I actually quit, what had happened was my mother had to undergo a surgery, and she had to take 6 weeks bed rest post the surgery. I'm an only child. My father's no more. And you know how it is for mothers in our country. They wouldn't like to come and stay with their daughters, especially with the daughters live in a joint family with in-laws. So I told my mother that I'll take some time off, as so you don't have to worry. I'll be around for the time that you're going to be at home and recovering. And I took 6 weeks of leave. Um, and that 6 weeks actually continued for 3 months, because as my mother recovered, my husband fell very ill. And
Mm.
as he recovered, my father in law fell ill. Now, the thing that I was talking to my organization was, now I did not want to take on a role which had travel, because I saw, if not immediately, I felt the need for me to be around all these people who supported me in my career journey, right? So I
Mm.
wanted a role which would allow me to be in the city. I would definitely go to work, but be in the city, and be around for them if something were to happen. So we were trying to negotiate a role of that kind. And this leave, which continued for 3 months, uh, didn't bring out such a role. They tried their best, and this is pre-COVID, right? 2017. So people didn't
Yeah.
think that you could do things remotely. And I was at a very
Yeah.
senior position. So they told me that we can't give you any more leave, and please come back. And whatever role is available, if it has travel, it has travel. You need to pick it up. And I had made up my mind that I would leave the job if I
Mm.
didn't get a role of the kind that I wanted. But what
Mm.
also enabled it was the fact that in those 3 months, though I was caring for people at home, I used to step out every day for 2 hours. So it's not the
Mm.
24 by 7 care, right? I mean,
True.
people were at home. So if I stepped out for 2 hours, then whoever was recovering and needed help, there was someone to kind of look after them. In the
Sure.
afternoons, when my mother would take rest or things like that, I would step out to do two things. One, I was volunteering. So I went and
Mm.
volunteered at startups, at jobs for her, etc., to give back and also to learn the nuances of how these organizations work, because startups are a really different kind of an animal as compared to monolithic, corporate houses. And I also, well, let's come to this. I am a huge networker, so I had connected with a lot of people prior, either on LinkedIn or when I attended events, etc. So I started meeting with them uh,
Mm.
to discuss how did they start up, because it was a very
Mm.
scary thing if I had to start off something on my own.
Yeah.
So I was speaking to them about how they started off and whether I could collaborate with them. And
Mm.
everybody came back and said, will be happy to collaborate with you. Let's kind of think about what could you do in our organization as a consultant, because I was not looking at an employment, and let's go ahead. So these two things, the fact that I knew there was enough to do, I wouldn't get bored, and of course the money part is one, but there was enough to do, and the fact that I did not get the kind of role that I was looking for drove me to transition. Okay, so there
Mm.
was no motivation, but it was more a trigger. And I knew that I could figure out how to make the money. That I definitely, it would take some time, but I knew I could do that. And there was the other thing, right? If you look at my LinkedIn headline, it says passionate to bring about a positive mindset shift with every interaction that I have with women and students. Of course, men too, but largely with women and students. This was
Yeah.
very intentional. This was very intentional. So I realized that when I used to speak to people, like we are conversing today, it could be through webinars, it could be mentorship, it could be in whichever way,
Mm.
there seemed to be some transformation in the other person,
Mm.
because they felt that I was narrating my own experiences, which were so real,
Mm.
and that if I could do it, then they could do it.
Mm.
So I was narrating stories from my own life, and they came back and said it was transformational, and they acted upon some of those learnings, and then they would come back and tell me, this is how I am today. this is what I did after your conversation with you. And I felt that if just a simple conversation can bring about such transformation, I must do more of it. And hence I do what I do today. So one thing led to the other. So our Jobs for Her Foundation happened. 18 months after that, I decided I want to do something in the space of youth. The role with National Education Society came by, which was, a role to build the Industry Academia Connect. I started doing a lot of leadership development programs, mentoring, coaching. I write a lot, I speak a lot. So anything that can enable this, you will see me there. So yeah, that's the story about the transition.
Wonderful. And I can say a couple of things. One is the stories that you bring in definitely also have impact on a lot of your male colleagues. I'm beneficiary as well.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. And it is the stories, as you rightly said. The whole purpose and the theme of this entire podcast is also stories of reinvention. And I think you truly are someone who has done that in your career. So thank you for that. One of the questions that I had, and you touched upon that in terms of the work that you do currently, is on mentorship. You currently mentor a lot of women students across various stages of their lives. Have you had mentors in your life? If yes, what kind of impact have they had on you? Anything that you would like to share with the audience today?
Okay. So today is a day for honesty. Every day I'm very honest, but yeah, I will say that I haven't had designated mentors, right? So
Mm,
I go back many years when I started in my corporate journey, and you really didn't talk about mentors, or even a
mm,
concept of mentors. I think didn't exist then.
correct.
But a lot of conversations with people is what I would, if I today reflect, I think so many of those conversations is like mentorship.
Correct.
Simple one, let me give a simple one. In When I was at ANZ, my first role at ANZ was, of course, I was a programmer in a 3-member team.
Mm,
And we built this, today you can fancily call it product, app, whatever. It was a small application that we developed, the three of us. And there was a global rollout. So in
mm,
all the branches of ANZ across the globe, we did the rollout, and the other two people moved out. So I was kind of held back,
mm,
because once you do the rollout, then you have the support that you have to provide. There would be bug fixes, and there would be regular maintenance. Every other country would want some new feature, etc.
mm,
So I was held back, and I kind of enjoyed it because it was a one-person, team which was doing everything end to end, talking to stakeholders, customers, global stakeholders. And I was very young, so this was really, a big thing. It was giving me a big high, and I was the one who was deciding the releases. And giving the workarounds. I was really enjoying in some ways and feeling very good about it, and I felt very important. And then
mm,
there was a change of boss, manager. So the new manager, when he came in, of course, he was going to sit and talk to each of us. So there were many other projects under his portfolio. I was the only one in this particular project. And I thought I'm really
sure.
going to impress him, saying that, see, I run this whole thing. And I told him the
Mm,
story. And the first thing he told me was, Neeraja, you made yourselves uh, I'm forgetting the word now, but do you realize that you're kind of becoming um, stuck?
mm,
There is no way out for you,
mm,
and there is no growth for you from here, because you
mm,
are going to stay here forever just doing this, because there is no backup, there is no 2IC, and you don't seem to be looking at anything beyond this. What
mm,
is the future of this particular product?
mm.
Nobody is going to, maybe after 15 years, they'll say we will do it in another technology.
Sure.
But beyond that, there is no growth. So he said, the first thing that I want you to do is hire a replacement and move out of this team. And I was so disappointed, because I thought he will praise me. And here he's saying, get out. Okay, maybe very politely. But then the boss has spoken. And I started interviewing people. And when it is your baby, it's almost like my baby. I don't think anybody else can look after my baby as well as I can.
True.
And I just couldn't find anyone right enough. In fact, I hired someone and I fired the person also because I felt this person is not capable. But then I had a deadline. My boss had given a
Mm.
deadline. And so I finally found someone. I handed it over and I moved out. If I look at it now, I think it was one of the most powerful mentoring conversations for me, because otherwise I would have stagnated. My leadership journey started only after I moved out of that team to another team. And
Mm.
after a few months, I was designated a leader there and so on. So while there may not have been a very active, okay, you're my mentor and I'm your mentee, and seeking out that kind of a guidance, there have been many, many conversations with many people who have influenced my career in the way that I have kind of grown.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, one common theme across a lot of people who I've spoken to, and also the guests that have come to the show, has been that there is never one mentor that they have had across various stages of their lives. They have had someone who has been their guide, mentor, supporting them through their journey. So wonderful to hear that. And I think if he's listening to your story today, he should be feeling proud that he asked you to do what you eventually did. Um,
It's Basudata.
and
So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Super. So you touched upon this slightly briefly, but I want to elaborate a little bit more on that aspect of when you were transitioning from one role to the other. And this is, I mean, you could take an entire career view of how long you have worked. Um, my personal view and my personal experience has been when you move from one role to the other, even if it is in your own so-called quote unquote comfort zone, you do face self-doubt, you do face imposter syndrome. Do you have any views on that, like, as to, I've heard a lot of people share this when I have had my coaching conversations. So if you had faced some of these, how did you overcome that, and what strategies or practices helped you to stay resilient and confident?
Sure. So let me start by saying that the imposter within me is 100 years old. It grows by 2 years every year. Okay. So if I'm 50, it is 100.
Good one.
So it's always been there, and it is there today, now also, when I'm speaking
Mm,
to you, right? It's
mm,
telling me, I hope you can do justice to this conversation, Neeraja, and to the
mm,
many people who have tuned in to listen to you. Okay.
mm,
But I have learned to calm it down. So, my mantra, and it's a very simple mantra, I always ask myself and also, to the imposter, what's the worst that can happen? Anytime.
mm,
So, for example, what's the worst that can happen today during this conversation? Maybe I will go dumbfounded, right?
mm.
So, what will
Or
happen,
maybe the
Gopal? You
power
will
goes.
stop the live. You will stop the live. That's it, right? If I'm not
Yeah.
speaking, I'm speaking some nonsense. You can stop the live. That's in your
Mm,
hands.
mm.
It will, and you can give some reasons, why you stop the conversation to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
After that, you will never ever reach out to me, maybe. You will never refer me to someone else. And if
Mm,
someone comes checking with you, how's Neerja, can we kind of take her as a leadership trainer, coach, or whatever, you'll
yeah.
say, did you not find anyone else? Okay. And that's the worst.
Yeah.
You're not going to come finding my address and wring my neck today. Okay, that's not going to happen. And for me, that's the worst case scenario, which I fear. Loss of
Mm,
life for me or for anyone else.
mm,
Hence, if the
true.
answer to that question, in whichever situation I am, and it has been always, it's not now, it's always in my life, if the worst thing that can happen is, something to my life or someone's life, then I will really think about it and see how to go about it. Otherwise, I just go for it.
Mm,
Okay. So when I left my job without another job, which is the transition we're talking about in 2017, I knew I'm not going to lose my life. I had enough
true.
savings to keep me going. And I knew in some time I will find ways to earn money. Okay.
Mm,
heading a not-for-profit foundation, which is what I did. The first thing that I did, of course, I did a little bit of consulting for a startup. And then I got this role to head the Jobs for Her Foundation, which was after 25 years of being in a corporate world. Neha Bagaria, the founder of Jobs for Her, which is now called Herky, should have feared whether I can do it or not, right? She trusted me. So why cannot I trust myself? National Education Society of Karnataka, which took me into the role to collaborate with academicians. My role was Industry Academia Connect. So I had to really collaborate with all those, PhD holders within the institute who were so much more experienced than me. Well, they should have feared, but they didn't. And I will also talk about, I was invited to be a jury member at MIT Sloan, Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Global Innovation Challenge. And of course, the imposter said, Neeraja, what have you ever done which is innovative in life? How can you be a jury member on this? But I knew how to kind of calm it down. But they felt that, I was the right person. So when everybody else feels that, then I should also feel the same. So my simple mantra, what's the worst that can happen? And figure it out along the way. You will be able to figure it out. We have Google, we have AI, we have networks, we have mentors. And if not, there'll be a failure. You learn from it and move on. So I think that mantra has really helped me in everything that I've done, be it in my corporate stint or after.
Wonderful. A lot of comments are coming in, which means a lot of people have tuned in. So thank you, audience, who have joined this episode. And as you were saying, what's the worst that could happen? I got reminded of this, and Funny, in fact, wrote that power cut.
And Gopal, remember what I said, I'll find a way. So my way was go to the neighbor who's supposed to have a solar powered house.
Yeah.
We'll do any. There will be some way out. We will figure a way out.
Yeah.
I'm not able to hear you.
1 second.
Yeah, I think I
Some
got
issue with my audio.
No, I can hear you now. Sure. Okay, so while Gopal comes back, I can look at some of the questions in there. Gopal is back, yes.
And that's what have happened.
Yeah, exactly. I think it just kind of wants to tell us.
Yeah. But yeah, no one died, no one was killed, so we're good. Unfortunately, Neeraja, you may have to help me out in this. Of
Yeah.
the comments, I am unable to see them. So if we can
Okay, sure.
take some of those. Yeah.
Yes, let me. So, Pushpa, when there's no growth in the company, we look for challenging roles, especially at senior roles. We get a lot of travel. How do we tackle such scenarios, especially in senior roles where expectation goes really high? So there are two things, right? I think today, hopefully, things have changed because COVID should have taught many of us that we can do things remotely. However, there is definite merit in meeting face to face. I mean, imagine if Gopal and I were sitting at Starbucks or some fancy place and doing this. Ambience would be better and conversations would be better with a coffee in our hands. So definite merit is there. So there are two aspects. Uh, why is it that we cannot travel is something that we need to really think through. And I had reserved this story for later, but let me now narrate this story. So just before I quit, I told you I quit without a job, right?
Yes.
I spoke to three people, two on the day I put in my resignation letter, but one prior to that, a few weeks in fact, prior to even going on my leave. That was Pankajam Sridevi. If you've heard of Pankajam Sridevi, or she is a force to reckon with. She is the managing director of Commonwealth Bank of Australia now. She worked with me in ANZ. Of course, I was not in ANZ then. I was in another organization. I took appointment with her and I went and met her. And I said, see, I'm thinking of quitting. And the reason being that the travel, my company was expecting me to be in Pune 1 week every month. And that could be increasing, as time goes by, because a large part of my team sat in Pune. A small part of them were in Bangalore. So they'd given me a Bangalore location because I was based out of Bangalore, but then the entire leadership team sat there and. So for me, this travel was becoming a bit of an issue, even before people at home started falling ill. I really didn't enjoy it. And I felt it was more a compliance. It was more a tick in the box. Oh, Neeraja has to come once a week, once a month, or something like that, right? Stay a week here. So I had that conversation with my manager to say that, see, after 6 months of doing this every month, I said, I will come when there's a real need. For example, I was actually managing the business performance of this entire account. So if there's an audit, I have to face an audit, the auditor is in Pune, I will come because it makes sense. But otherwise, I think hi, hello to the team, we can do it, even from wherever. I'm not just coming for the sake of it. Everybody told me it's a career limiting statement you're making, discussion that you're having. I said, it's okay. I understand the consequences, but I really want to put my viewpoint there. And then my manager said, no, we would like you to come. So maybe this is not the team for you. So I moved out and I was looking for something else. So I went and spoke to Pankaj and said, I think I'm going to quit because I don't enjoy travel. So she said, okay, tell me how your life would be if you were in Bangalore. Okay. So I said, yeah, see, I was in Bellandur. For those of us who know Bangalore well, my office was in Bellandur. I lived in Alsur. Okay. And I worked for a US client, or whichever client, I mean, forget it. So you would leave home by 8 on a good day to reach by 9, 9:30, 10. 2017, I'm talking about. No metros and things like that. And then you do your whatever 8 hours, 10 hours. Then if you get a cab by 6:37, good. Then you're coming back home by 9. This is your routine. It's not that you have finished your work, right? At that role, you have enough and more emails and meetings still piled up, which you will take from home. So you go home and maybe you say hi, hello to the people at home. So I lived with my in-laws, my husband, my daughter, who was still in school. You say a hi to people, maybe 5, 10 minutes, eat something with somebody or alone, and you're back doing your work. She said, if you traveled, I will bet you will do a 30-minute video call with your family every day, okay, to have conversations, which you may not even, spend when you are there locally. So what is this big thing that you're achieving by being in the same city and you're going to quit for that? Negotiate with your organization and say how many times you will travel. If there's a long weekend coming up, you won't go that week. Do something, negotiate, you're not quitting. I think that's a powerful mentoring conversation. Okay.
True. Very
so
true.
for the question that was asked, let's really assess what is the issue if you can't travel. And if it's something like this, and that's why women have these mindsets. I don't know, men too, maybe, but we have these mindsets. We feel we really can't deal with this, and hence the ultimate decision is, oh, let's leave it, or something of that sort. And that's not necessarily. But have the conversation. Please do have the conversation with whoever if there is a real challenge. Is my response to Pushpa.
Thank you, Pushpa, for asking that. I think this has been a question for a lot of people, especially in most of the big cities like Bangalore, Pune, where now traveling within the city itself is becoming a bigger challenge. So, welcome to the new realities of the working world. So, thank you for asking that. I'm going to take a few more comments and questions that I can see on the LinkedIn app. So, Dr. Usha says, of course, take the questions on the chat, Neeraja. So, thank you. Sri Lekha says, great words on imposter syndrome. I think this was a little older comment. Thank you, Sri Lekha. Sri Lekha is my wife, by the way. Imposter syndrome is a close friend of mine. Very well said that worst can happen. Imposter syndrome is a constant companion. How true, well said. So Wonderful comments and questions coming in. Dr. Usha says again, negotiate, don't quit, give up, my takeaway. So thank you for that. Dear audience, continue to keep these questions and thoughts coming in. And as you do that, I'm going to take the next question. What career advice would you give to women who currently feel, quote unquote, directionless and are struggling to find ways to ask for what they want? This has been a big concern, challenge. I would also take a slightly broader view. This is the asking aspect has been a challenge for a lot of us, even men for that matter. So, any advice that you have for people?
Sure. So I'll start by saying a crying baby always gets the milk. And many times only the crying baby gets the milk. So you've got
Yeah,
to ask. Okay.
yeah,
And I gave
well
this
said.
advice recently to this young girl who I had referred to be the MC for one of the events. So she has a day job, but I knew
Hmm.
that she likes these and she'll be good at it. So I had referred her, and then I had told her that you must get some promotions done. You are the MC, right? There must be some talk about it on social media.
Right,
I said,
right.
you gotta ask for it. And she said, I asked once and they've not done anything about it. I said, go ask again. Ask till it gets
Hmm.
done. Doesn't matter. So what will they think? Oh, let them think whatever. We
Yeah,
want
let them think.
what we want is most important.
Right.
And one day before the event, creative went out, and it was a beautiful and powerful creative, right? So you need to ask. Again, what's the worst? You won't get what you asked, right? That is the worst. So I
Hmm.
asked for a role with no travel. I didn't get it. But I managed to
Hmm.
get 3 months off. And in those 3 months, I did a lot of networking. I did a lot of volunteering. I did a lot of conversations, which helped me figure out what I want, what I will do when I quit. Okay,
Hmm.
so to ask, you get something. The best case is that you get what you ask for, and the worst case is you don't get, but somewhere in the middle something will work out. So I want to give three stories here. Okay,
Sure.
my first ask was in my very first job at Sonata. So I was still studying at NIIT. Hopefully, Gopal is not getting bored of these stories because I may have narrated some to him earlier, and maybe some others would have listened to it because I do a lot of talking. But anyway, this girl who had just finished a graduation and was at NIIT doing the 4 semester course. This is early 1990s. For those of you who were around then, will understand, the importance of these kinds of courses. Then it
Yeah.
was the
Aptech and
IT
NIIT.
boom. Yeah, it was the IT boom, right?
Yeah.
So I was in the third semester, and Sonata came to take a few of us on a contract assignment. So for 3 months, and there's a possibility that we could get converted, or we could kind of be sent back. But it was a good experience for us. We're still studying.
Sure.
Many of us got in. I was
Mhm.
the only one who had one more semester to complete, the fourth semester. The others were doing only 3 semesters, and it was the end of the third semester. Now, it would have worked out well because NIIT was 2 hours every day and 3 days a week. And we had to work in shifts. So I'm talking about an era where even companies didn't have enough computers. So it was a contract assignment. They didn't
Yeah,
want to
true.
invest in, 20 computers. So they
Yeah,
had 10 and they said work in shifts, morning shift, 7 to 3. Another person will use the same computer from 3 to 11. And
sure.
I, being a girl, I was, given the morning shift. It worked very
Hmm.
well because my classes were for the fourth semester were from 3 to 5, and 3 days I
Hmm.
could have figured it out. We could have made it work.
Right.
However, again, I'm talking about an era where we didn't have computers at home also, and we used to get 6 hours to do our project work.
Yeah.
The entire semester, 6 months, 6 hours.
Right.
And our projects used to be develop a micro database in
Hmm.
6 hours. Okay, there's no way. So we used to hang around in an IIT looking for free, slots. Maybe some faculty member didn't come and hence the lab is free, or somebody is absent and one of the spots is free. And we used to do all of this work beforehand so that during our project hours, we only typed in the code. That's it.
Hmm.
This is not predictable. Okay, I could get my free hour in the morning or in the evening. So this
True.
was my
Yeah.
problem. So now what options did I have? One is that I could say no to the sonata and just focus on NIT because it was very, very important for me. In parallel, my father was trying to find this groom, this boy for me. So I didn't know how life would be once I got married, and I had to finish this course. A lot of money my father had put in. Or I choose to pause my course because I can always go back. In the 3 months, 6 months, 2 years break also, I could go back and do my studies. This was a 3 month
Right.
assignment. So I could focus on this, do it well, and then go back if it didn't kind of get converted or the contract finished. Or
Hmm.
the third is I do
Hmm.
both, but I'm not going to do both very well because I wouldn't get those
Hmm.
adequate hours of practice. And even at Sonata, I'll be worried, right? I'm not doing this well, I'm not doing that well. I did a fourth thing. I asked. I'm talking about this girl, in the very first job. I went to the senior management, so a level above my immediate manager. It was a lady, Suman. And I said, I don't know what to do. This is my problem. I can work, but this is the problem. I didn't have a solution to offer. I just stated it. Everybody said, what are you trying to talk? They will
Hmm.
say, what will we usually do? They'll say, okay, you finish your course and come back. If there is a role when you finish your course, we'll look at it. This is a standard answer you'll get from HR, right? There might be HR folks
Correct.
here, but this is the standard answer. But I said what
Yeah.
I had to say. 2 days later, she came back and she said, we've discussed, we're making an exception for you. We are giving you a dedicated computer. So you don't have to work in shifts. You can come whenever, you can go whenever, as long as you finish the work that is allocated to you for 1 week by that Sunday. And it has to be to the quality standards that are there for everybody else.
Hmm.
And it did wonders. So I went to NIIT, I found free spots, I practiced, I came back, I went back. I mean, of course, life was a mess. I left home at 6. There was no mobile, no nothing, right? So my parents didn't know where I was. Offices in Bull Temple Road, NIT is in Richmond Road. God knows where I am. I was traveling by bus, came home only at 8 in the night. But the 3 months contract became 6 months, 6 months became 9 months. All of us went through the 9 months of contract. All of us got permanent appointment after 9 months. I had also completed my NIT course and I was a topper. The others who took a break probably never could go back and complete the course. So ask. And quickly, I want
Yeah.
to give you two more stories. This is one in the corporate space. The second is about all of us have a lot of interest in speaking gigs, right? People keep
Hmm.
asking, oh, Neeraja, how do you get to speak in so all these places? Of course, people reach out to me. I'm not denying it.
Hmm.
But what stops you from asking for it? So
Hmm.
you find an interesting event and you want to speak, go find that organizer and say, hey, I would like to speak on this particular topic. So, Marshall Goldsmith, all of us know the number one coach. So he was here in Bangalore to promote his book. Um,
Hmm.
the book about the 12 habits of women, how women rise. He talks about the 12 habits of women, which kind of, you know, don't allow us to grow. So that was the book launch. I wanted to attend that. I wanted to attend the book launch. So I was heading the Jobs for Foundation then, and I went into the office and I saw this book at my table. And I said, okay, how come this book is here? And this person said that Jobs for Foundation has partnered with this launch event. So we got a few books, and Neha Bagaria was to be speaking at that event. So I said, hey, I want to attend. Can I get a spot? So what I was told is there were few spots also given to us, like 5 passes, 10 passes. Everything
Hmm.
is taken. I really
Okay.
wanted to attend. So this
Hmm.
girl, went and told Neha, passes are over. Neeraja wants to attend. Guess what Neha said? She said, let her go and speak on my behalf. I
Wow.
sat next to Marshall Goldsmith. I was on stage. Okay. So ask. What the worst is you won't get it. The best is you'll get more than what you asked, but always you'll get something in between. So yeah, go ahead and ask for it.
Profound. Wonderful. I think that's one thing that I think my key takeaway of all the podcasts that I have been doing is to ask, learn to ask, which is wonderful. Some more comments that I'm seeing on the app. Devashish asks, don't you think, ma'am, that nowadays these seems to be a challenge because of generation gap, where we want to do something new and extra, but people sitting into leadership are rigid in terms of giving opportunities, for which frustration, anxiety, and so comes at out kitty. I'm not sure what that means, but yeah, I mean, I think I'm guessing what he's meaning to say is that organizations are very rigid in allowing people to do these speaking gigs or stretch projects outside the organization, as long as it's not volunteering. What are your views on that?
So I think things are changing. Let's start there. Things are changing. For example, when I spoke about women on a career break and the kinds of experiences that I heard in 2016, things have changed in the last few years. In fact, I sometimes joke and I tell that I think we all have to take a sabbatical if we need another job, because people are only hiring women on a career break. So things are changing, and things are changing for the better. Even here, I think, yes, there are certain organizations, because of the work that they do, the clients that they have, there are certain
Yeah.
boundaries and restrictions of where you can go and speak and what kinds of additional projects you can do outside of the organization. I do
Yeah.
agree. And I think we need to respect that, because um, there is a lot of fraud that happens, and there is a lot of
True.
IP laws that can happen. However, please
Yeah.
ask for, don't just assume, please do ask. But then there are many open, forward looking organizations who are allowing. um, this is what I would say. If you're not getting those opportunities outside, till you start getting those opportunities outside, do it internally. So
Hmm.
eventually, what is it that you want? You want to tell people that you have a capability and you have passion and interest in doing a few things beyond your regular day job. So find those opportunities within your organization. There are plenty. Put up your hands to,
Hmm.
kind of go and do a project in finance or HR if you're from technology, right? Um, and it will take you a few extra hours, which means that you should be prepared to, spend those additional hours. But it is important to build that network, to build your visibility, and to prove that you can do more or different things than what you are capable for. That's one part of it. The second part of it is that sometimes we need to empathize with whoever. It could be leaders or whoever else is not letting you go outside and do those, because you
Yeah.
don't know, what they have in mind. It could be a blanket no, but try to become friendly with that person to figure out why the no. It is very important for us to find out why the no came.
Hmm.
And once you've understood the reason, you may be able to provide a solution to that. So I
Correct.
always
Again,
tell
ask.
people, yeah, I always tell people, give the other person benefit of doubt, to say, okay, there must be a reason. Maybe he or she is not explaining the reason to me. If it is not all that confidential, if they can kind of, so for which you need to really, that is why networking is very important, right? Building those relationships
Hmm.
are very, very important. So that just in time, you can't say, I want something. If you've built a long term relationship with whoever, then at that point in time, you can definitely, have a better conversation to say, okay, why do you think I can't do this? And is there a way out? Is there still a way
Hmm.
out?
Hmm.
So yeah, that's what I would like to suggest.
Thank you, Devashish, for asking that question. Very important one, and I'm sure a lot of people are going through similar emotions as they go through their career. A question from Anshuman Tiwari. Neerja, what issues do you see women facing in mid-career? I know this is a topic that is, I mean, we could have a separate podcast to dedicate it to this probably. Yeah, do you have any? I mean, you work a lot with on these initiatives. You speak to a lot of women as part of your mentoring initiatives. What are you hearing, and what are some of the challenges that still continue in the job market today?
Sure. So I would like to talk about this from two aspects. One is in the organization, at the organization level, and second is
Hmm.
in the women, right?
Hmm.
We have to be fair to both the sides. So at the organization level, biases, stereotypes still exist. Whatever you say, it exists. And it is okay for it to exist, because it is the conditioning of those
Mm.
people in that organization, which is, because of the way they grew up, the experience that they have had within this organization, outside that organization, because of which certain biases and stereotypes are in the mind. So it is important for whoever to try and build the awareness. And if you felt bias towards you, then don't go and bitch about that person or make it a gossip talk, or put out a post about it. That's okay, but please sit down with that person and in a nice way say, hey, I felt it was like this, and I wasn't sure why it came across like this, but I wanted to tell you. That is why relationships are very, very important. And sometimes the other person is not aware that he or she even did it or said something which was a very biased comment. And most, it's always an 80-20 rule. 20% may be, rigid and may not change. 80% will take that and give you reasons that in the past, when I made this, we kind of allowed somebody to do this. This is what happened, etc., etc., etc. And then you can say, okay, let's find a solution for this together. Okay, so at the organization level, biases, stereotypes exist, and it is again for all of us to build awareness in the system that this is coming. That's why you have a lot of employee resource groups, etc., today, so that the voices can be heard and they can take some action. The second is the policies. We need to bring new gender neutral policies. So yeah, maternity leave. So 3 months became 6 months, while it's good, but there's also the not so good, because now people are thinking, oh, she'll be gone for 6 months if I hire a woman, if she gets
Mm.
pregnant and has a baby. So should I hire a woman? Okay, and then I know
Mm.
there was a recent talk about the 2-year childcare policy. People are talking about it. So again, that is,
Mm.
while there's a good to it, and the bad effect of it is that people will say, okay, a woman will go away. If we had gender neutral policies, it is parental leave. So the woman can take, the man can take 6 months off. Then you are not thinking this woman will take, right? Because even the man can take and go away. So then your decisions to hire are based on something else and not necessarily the gender. So these are two things that I think at the organization level people need to think about. For the woman, there's a lot of mindset. And this mindset is about imposter syndrome, self doubt. Men also have it, but I think they deal with it better. They cope with it better. And guilt, a woman's guilt, like Jacinta says, that's the gift to the girl child that she gets, the guilt. So I think we have to just kind of take the guilt away. We want to be perfectionists. So we
Mm.
know research says that if there is a role, a man, if he's 50% there, he'll put up his hand and say, yeah, that's one for me. I'm the right person. But a woman will want to tick off all the bullets, maybe even 120% out there, but you'll never be 120%. You will never be
Mm.
100%. You will be 100% ready for a role only when you've already done that role. Then there's no growth for you, right? You're just moving into
Correct.
another role of a similar kind. And let me be very honest, sometimes job descriptions are just cut, copy, paste. So those 10 bullets may not even be needed. And things are evolving so much that in the next 6 months, you're doing something totally different from what the JD said.
True.
So again, this is the responsibility of the organization to prepare good JDs, not just for the sake of it, write everything, down in it. And for the woman also to say, if you have ticked off 6 points out of 10, it's good enough. Go for it, take a
Mm.
risk. You will always be able to figure out. So yeah, these are the two things. Mid level, younger women, I think, are today a bit more going and grabbing things. But yeah, mid level, that is the reason. Also because the third thing I think I can say is about, they're not very intentional about their careers. No? If you're
Mm.
intentional about your career, you will go find a way, right? So we are very intentional about this conversation. I'm happy to go to my neighbor's house and say, I'll sit and do this from your house. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm very intentional about it. You will find a way. Because you're not very intentional about your career, and this could be also with some men, but largely with women. If you ask them, what do you want, where do you see yourselves in the next 5 years?
Mm.
Not very sure, right? So if you're not very sure, then you don't know how to reach there. Everything looks like a roadblock. It's like taking your car out for a drive, not knowing where
Hmm.
you want. There is a roadblock, and you turn back and come home. But if you knew where you wanted, you will use Google Maps and find other ways to reach there.
Wonderfully said. I think a lot of thoughts that triggered even within me in terms of how things have been, my own reflections. Policy as a specific matter is, I feel, a lot more broader state and the center subject as well, not just about the organization. So I think the new code, the social security code, and the employment code should be able to address some bit of it. Um, but more or less, I feel I mean, the thing that I'm taking away from what you just said is negotiate and ask. Sometimes you got to be asking the right questions to the right people. Make yourself intentional about what you want to do, and it may seem that it may not work, but yeah, I mean, there is no harm in asking. So
Right.
again, wonderful insights. A lot of comments coming in. I think there is one question that I would like to take here from Pushpa is, while having senior resources in the organization for long run, most of the times I noticed youngsters' idea are not taken into consideration. The corporate politics bias takes lead role. In spite of trust earned with the long-term service and low cost, the management fails to take action on senior resources too. How do we handle such situation? Is it a good move from such environment and look for firm where there is good culture? Pushpa, I must say, it takes enormous amount of courage to ask this question. So kudos to you for that. Nirja, any thoughts on this as to how do we address um, being part of or sometimes being victim of corporate politics?
So politics is there to stay. Okay. We have to become politically savvy. That's also one of the things that we all have to put in our curriculum, and build in our next generation. Um, and that's why I emphasize on the fact that build those relationships, because you can have those conversations, right? It's not favoritism or anything like that. Those conversations are very important. You can't just have it in time. Oh, I'm going through something, but if you've had a long term relationship with someone, you can sit down and have those conversations.
Yeah.
So two things: if you are being subjected to what you feel is unethical, uh, you need to table it. There's no way out.
Hmm.
What's the worst that can happen? Um the worst is that you may lose your job. That's the worst, correct? And yes, it is a big thing for many of us, but you'll have to build some kind of a backup plan. That is why it's important for us to invest early. I mean, we're going into some other tangents, but very important things, right? Career transitions. If I didn't have that kind of savings, I don't think I would have, taken that call so quickly. So it is
Yeah.
important for us to build those saving investment habits very, very early on from the very first salary, which, I did. And hence I was able to kind of be good with my money. But you must table it. And in every organization, there is a process for it. You can ring the bell,
Hmm.
right? Today, every organization has to comply with harassment policies, etc., and there are rules. Now, you may
Hmm.
say that nobody will follow those rules, but
Hmm.
again, I have done it. I have rung the bell. I don't know how much time we have, but I can narrate the story in an organization where I was on bench, if you understand bench, right? In
Hmm.
services companies where you're not billing to a client. So basically, you're not bringing in any revenue. So it's not a good place to bench, as
Hmm.
literally, it's not a good place to sit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was extremely senior. So while I was looking for a billable role, what I did was I told three people in the organization that I'm available to do stuff. One is I told the India HR head that I'm available. If you have any initiatives, I'm happy to run. I told my particular competency head, so you have practices, right? So I was in the testing competency, that if you have some initiatives to run, I'm happy to. And then I also told the Bangalore center head that if there is at the Bangalore level something to do. So I got enough stuff to do at the Bangalore center head and from the India HR head. But my home, which was that competencies, practice, didn't give me anything. Didn't give me anything, right? And eventually, who does your performance appraisal? It's your home. The
Hmm.
testing person has to do your performance appraisal. So what I used to do was I used to document. Every week, I would give an update to this my manager to say, I've done accomplished this at the India head, at the Bangalore head. I'm asking you for something to do. Doesn't look like there is anything. So in nice ways, I used to document, send emails. Everything was, noted down. I had great recognition globally. However, performance appraisal time, I didn't even have a discussion. And when the system opened up, I had got a rating of 4, which is not performed. Right?
Hmm.
So I rang the bell. I asked the HR head, people who get a 4, are they not allowed a conversation? And she says, no, of course you need to have a conversation. So then she called him and said, how come you have not had a conversation? And then he called me from the airport saying, we'll have a conversation. Imagine he is sitting in the airport trying to have a performance appraisal conversation after the rating is fixed. Okay. So I said, I'm
Yeah.
not happy. And
Hmm.
what is the process? So I actually put it through the process, and I was very senior. So imagine my boss and the boss's bosses are very, very senior. And I rang the bell and they put it through a process. 3 senior neutral people, leaders, came to talk to me about how the year went. I showed all this proof. So another thing is ensure you document everything, every
Hmm.
conversation, every meeting, even corridor meetings. But if it is about work, please document it and send out minutes of a meeting. I had all of this proof to say I have done enough stuff. This person didn't give me work,
Hmm.
but I have done stuff, right, which was
Hmm.
worthy. The organization benefited. So I got back my rating, I got my bonus, I got my performance rating, everything. So please speak up. Use the right forums to speak up. That is if wrong has been done to you. If you see
Hmm.
wrong being done to somebody else, please speak up. It is important. We
Hmm.
sometimes are in positions that we can influence outcomes for others. I've done that many, many times, and I've guided so many people. People have reached out to me asking, "Is it okay to do this?" I said, "Go for it." Yeah. What's the worst that can happen is the question. Find ways to, take care of that worst case scenario, but go for it.
Wonderful. I know we are about the time. If you're okay, we can go for another 10 minutes, Neerja, if that is okay
Um,
with you.
okay. Yeah.
Some really interesting comments that have come, which also shows that a lot of audience is very keen to hear your perspectives. Funny, a dear friend, guest in the earlier episode of Career Shifts asks, how important is male allyship to achieve gender equity both in workplace as well as family life? Supporting spousal career aspirations to manage social and familial acceptance.
Right. Yes, allyship is important. We are talking about women, male allyship. We're talking about men allyship. Allyship is important everywhere, right? Now, let's talk about male allyship when it comes to women. So I was, having this conversation during Women's Day at one of the organizations where I gave a talk, where this person said, see, women have the choice to work or not work. They make that
Hmm.
decision that, okay, I'm going to take a career break. Okay.
Hmm.
But we always, say, so we are okay with that. We are giving them the choice. But then on the other side, we are saying, oh, look at that. She had to take a career break. And it's always the man who's kind of made, shown as the devil here.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
said, why did the system not help her think beyond the only solution of a career break?
Hmm.
That is allyship. Okay. And there is a quote, I'm forgetting the person, but this is a quote I always use when I do sessions on allyship. This lady says that when I decided to take a break, everybody supported. My family, friends, everybody supported. And
Hmm.
that is the issue. Nobody questioned it. So
Ah.
allyship is that, right? So I am an ally to so many women where I feel, the nudge is important. I sometimes have very harsh conversations with my closest of friends and they will hate me for those conversations. But if I'm your friend, I
Hmm.
have to point it out, right? So it is
Very true.
important at home, it is important at work, it is important in the community. Allyship means not just saying yes, supporting those decisions, but questioning those decisions at some point in time. Just like Pankajam said, why is travel such a big problem? And she made me look at it from a very different lens, because
Correct.
we sitting over here, it's like taking a balcony view, right? When you
Mm.
are, on the in the dance floor, you're dancing, you don't understand, but you have to take the balcony view, which is what the allies need to do. And the other thing
Mm.
that the allies need to know is to understand the mindsets of women. So whenever I do sessions on allyship, I spend, if it's a 1 hour workshop, half an hour is only talking about women's mindsets. Do you know why women don't put up their hands when there is, an opportunity? Because they want to be 100% there. They will
Mm.
not put up their hands. So when you understand that, you will nudge this person and say, why haven't you put up your hand? Instead of
Mm.
end of the year, you're sitting at the performance appraisal discussion saying that woman doesn't show initiative, so she doesn't deserve
Mm.
anything better than a 3. As an ally, you should know that this is the reason, that she wants to be
Mm.
perfect. Nudge her and say, hey, go for it. I'm there with you. If there is a problem, because she will say, oh no, I'm not yet ready, we'll figure it out. Whatever is needed, the
Mm.
organization will support. There's enough material out there for you to study and perform the role. So yes, allyship is very, very important. Male allyship is important when it comes to women, but please understand the mindsets and be the right kind of an ally, not just supporting, oh, you want to take a break, or you don't want to do it, it's okay. It's not that. It's really enabling the person to take the right decisions.
I'll be very honest. I learned this today, so thank you for sharing this perspective. Yeah, you're right. We tend to be always supporting, quote unquote, in whatever decisions, but it is also very important to guide them appropriately. And I mean, bravo. That's what I would say. Funny also says an interesting point of asking questions is also in the current day and age of generative AI, it's nothing but prompting, right? So we need to get better at asking the right questions. So I have a last couple of questions, especially given your role with the education ecosystem at the National NES, rather. Um, for those who are in early stages of their career, if you have any perspective on what are some of the things that they need to be mindful about as they are coming into the workforce. And I know of a lot of organizations who have specific roles for women. For example, a lot of engineering based organizations, like Ola Electric as an example, or Ather as an example, specifically look at hiring women for even different kind of roles than what used to happen in the past. But what advice would you have for young women coming into the workforce um, in the next few years?
So yeah, let me answer two things here. One is, of course, the roles, the kinds of skills that they need to develop, and we've spoken enough
Mm.
about this, right, Gopal? We've said become T-shaped, become T-shaped. We've kind of done it
Yeah.
to death, but it is important. And for those who may not understand what T is, of course, the vertical is the depth of your subject matter expertise, whatever that is, your industry knowledge, your technology knowledge, whatever that is. And the horizontal is the breadth of other competencies that you bring in, which doesn't necessarily come from attending courses, but it comes from the work that you do additionally, volunteering, internships, clubs, and doing 100 other things. So it is very important for you to become T-shaped, because organizations need those kinds of people. They need people who are
Mm.
flexible, curious, solution focused, they're creative, right? The ones who can network and influence outcomes. So why do you need to network? Because eventually it's not about positional power. Each of us is a leader. Each of us has the opportunity to influence the outcome in the way they wish, and that comes from those relationships that you build. And building your own brand is so very important. Visibility is important. So ensure that you find opportunities to showcase your strengths, to showcase your expertise. For women, especially, again, I'm going to say there is no need to be perfect. 50% is good enough. Go for it.
Mm.
Okay. There's no concept of being a superwoman. 100 people will tell you things. So Apurva Purohit, right? I always, talk about her. She says it's better to be, fantastic in a few things rather than being mediocre in everything. So identify those few and be great at that. You don't have to be perfect and take risks. They almost always pay off. Okay. Be your own cheerleader. Don't think somebody else is going to do, which means that pat your back. Even in those allyship sessions, I say how many women can actually appreciate what they did in the last one day, 1 week, 1 month, and they're still thinking. 1 month also, they're not able to find something that they
Wow.
did worthy of appreciation. Okay. And that's our problem. We can't accept a compliment. If you praise my sari, I'll say, oh, this one is like 20-year-old sari. Can I just shut up and say, thank you, Gopal? Not saying that you didn't praise my sari, but I'm saying we are not able to, right? Say that we've
Yeah.
done a great job. So those are certain things that I definitely think we need to build. And on this industry academia connect, that role that I had, right? While roles exist, those kinds of roles exist in educational institutions because they don't know what the industry wants. So we go talk to the industry keeps telling us, but let's be very practical. By the time the industry tells your curriculum has to change and bring in this, you implemented it 6 months, 1 year down the line, things have changed. Okay. So
Very
it
true.
is also important for each of us, be a student, be a parent, whoever you are in the system, to ensure that you enable yourself and everybody else. So each of us can do something for sure. Okay, let's find that opportunity so that the youth in our country and everybody in our country, don't are not called as lacking skills. For sure, we are not.
Wonderful. So, with that, we will quickly get into rapid fire. Just few questions, and it would be truly rapid fire style. Favorite book?
Apurva Purohit's Lady, You're the Boss.
Wonderful. Describe your career journey in one word.
Trailblazing.
Wonderful. If you had a chance to, or rather, if you had a choice to be a mentor or a mentee, what will you choose and why?
Mentor, as there's a lot to be done in that space. As a mentee, I can find enough and more, mentors to be guided by, but I think I would like to mentor.
Okay. One top networking tip.
Leave your comfort zone.
Okay. One thing about Neeraja that the world doesn't know.
Okay. I was a meek, timid, shy girl for the first 30 years of my life. I did not even say hi to the person sitting next to me for the first 10 years of my corporate life. And here I am
Wow.
today. I have transformed and I enable transformation. So if I can do it, so can you. So please go ahead. It's a ripple effect.
Wonderful. Um, any parting thoughts for the audience today, Neeraja?
Thank you for spending this time with us. And it definitely encourages us to do more such conversations, given that people are spending the time. But as I said, please ensure that you take away at least one thing and act on
One
it. And we
action.
would
Yeah.
love to know, whether it worked, didn't work. We are available on LinkedIn and through many other platforms. And please spread the word around, because that's the power of these kinds of conversations. But thank you for being there
Absolutely.
at this time of the day.
Yeah. Thank you very much, people who joined in. I know there were a few comments that I couldn't pick up. Nirja and I will personally make sure that we read them and respond to. And yeah, and yeah, technology happens. I mean, we at times uh, don't always plan for it. So today happened to be that day. But nevertheless, I think we had a very good conversation. So thank you for that. And with that, one of the things that I would say, as always, is I hope Nirja's stories and her insights have inspired you to rethink your career journey, recognizing strength in diversity and power of perseverance. Every career shift is a step towards growth, filled with new learnings and endless possibilities. As always, remember your career path is uniquely yours. It's the bold moves that we make and the unwavering support from our community that lead us to true success. So stay curious, keep exploring newer horizons, and join us for the next episode as we continue to share stories of incredible career transformations, just like Neerja's. Until then, keep shifting forward. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. The last comment I'll say is you could be in the worst situation today, but even if you could move 1 millimeter, it's good enough. In 6 months, you would have really, kind of crossed the bridge. So every day, please ensure you take action on what you want to do.
Wonderful. I couldn't have ended it better than this. So thank you so much, Nirja. Really appreciate
Bye.
you joining us today. And thank you, folks.
Bye. My pleasure to be on this.